At 5 in the morning, my husband humiliated me. I was far along in my pregnancy when he yelled, "Get up and make breakfast for my parents." His folks just chuckled. My sister-in-law sneered, "You deserve it." Shaking, I sent out a desperate text message right before everything went dark. The events that unfolded next silenced the entire courtroom. The judge's face told the whole story. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth, but it was the searing pain in my pregnant belly that truly ripped my world apart. As I hit the cold kitchen floor, a monster's boot connected with my unborn son, and in that horrifying moment, I knew everything was about to change. Not just for me, but for them. I know the exact time because I watched the numbers on my phone blur through tears. 5:07 a.m. The slap had echoed in the pre-dawn silence, a crack that seemed to split my entire world in half. My 7-month pregnant belly scraped against the tile, and I felt something wet between my legs. Not blood. Something else. Something terrifying. "Did you hear me, you useless cow?" His voice, the voice that once whispered promises under starlight, now spat venom in the darkness. I said, "Get up and make breakfast. My parents are hungry." Through the ringing in my ears I heard it. Laughter. High-pitched, cruel, echoing from the doorway where his mother stood. Willow. Her silk nightgown pristine, her face twisted in amusement. His father, Anthony, sat at the kitchen table, the same one I'd scrubbed just 6 hours ago. His newspaper rustling as he chuckled. "About time someone taught her proper respect," Willow purred, her words dripping with satisfaction. I tried to stand, my swollen feet, my aching back, my trembling hands reaching for the counter. That's when the door burst open again, and his sister walked in. Penelope. Her smile was the cruelest thing I'd ever seen. "Oh, did poor little thing have a wake-up call?" she sneered, circling me like a predator. "You know what? Let me help you remember your place." The kick came from nowhere. Her designer boot connected with my stomach with such force that the air left my lungs. The baby. Oh God, the baby. I felt him, my little boy, lurch inside me, then go terrifyingly still. I screamed or tried to. Only a wheeze came out. "That's what you get for trapping my brother," she hissed, drawing her leg back for another strike. My hand shook as I fumbled for my phone. The screen was cracked from where it had fallen, but it still worked. The emergency contact. The one I'd programmed 3 months ago when the first bruise appeared. When I first realized the man I married was a monster wearing a mask. One button. Just one button. The world tilted. Darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. But before everything went black, I heard the notification sound. Message sent. Then nothing. What I didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the button I pressed didn't just send an SOS to my brother. It activated something else. Something that would turn their laughter into screams, their cruelty into consequence, their twisted family into ruins. The courtroom would be silent 2 months later. The judge's face would drain of color. The jury would gasp. And my husband's family would finally understand what it meant to truly suffer. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 18 months earlier, I believed in fairy tales. I stood in that church in my grandmother's vintage lace dress, holding white roses that matched the lies everyone told. "What a beautiful couple," they whispered. "He's so successful, so handsome. You're so lucky to have found him." Lucky. That word would haunt me. His name was Alexander Hunt, 32 years old, senior architect at one of the city's most prestigious firms, with a smile that could melt glaciers and eyes that promised forever. We'd met at a coffee shop where I worked part-time, finishing my nursing degree. He'd ordered a black coffee and left a $100 tip with his number. "For making my morning brighter," he'd said. 6 months of whirlwind romance. Candlelit dinners where he'd listened to my dreams of becoming a pediatric nurse. Romantic getaways where he'd photograph me against sunsets. Surprise flowers at the hospital where I did my clinicals. He met my family. My mother, who'd raised me alone after Dad died, and my brother Carter, a detective with the city police who eyed Alexander with a suspicion I dismissed as overprotectiveness. "Something's off about him," Carter had said the night before my wedding. "His eyes, they're empty. You're being paranoid." I'd laughed, drunk on love and champagne. "He's perfect." The wedding was small. His family seemed distant. His mother, Willow, wore black instead of the requested pastels and barely spoke to my mom. His father, Anthony, spent the reception on business calls. His sister, Penelope, a fashion blogger with 500,000 Instagram followers, took selfies instead of participating in family photos. They're just reserved, Alexander explained. Old money families are different. I believed him. I believed everything. The honeymoon in Santorini was a dream. White buildings against blue water. His hands gentle in mine. Promises of babies and forever whispered against my skin. I fell asleep in paradise, completely unaware I was making a deal with the devil. The first crack appeared 3 months after we returned. We'd moved into his family's estate, a massive colonial mansion on 10 acres outside the city. It makes financial sense, he'd argued when I suggested finding our own place. The house is huge. We'll have our own wing. But we didn't. His parents occupied the master suite and the entire east wing. Penelope had the west wing when she visited, which was often. Alexander and I got 2 rooms on the second floor. A bedroom and a small sitting area that his mother insisted on decorating herself. "You have no taste, dear," Willow had said sweetly, returning the soft blue curtains I'd bought and replacing them with heavy burgundy drapes that made the room feel like a tomb. "Trust me on this. I should have left then. I should have run. Then I got pregnant. The morning I saw those 2 pink lines, I cried tears of joy. I'd always wanted to be a mother. Despite everything, the tension with his family, the way Alexander had grown distant, checking his phone constantly and coming home late. I truly believed a baby would fix everything. A baby would make us a real family. I planned a surprise. I bought a tiny pair of booties and wrapped them in a box. I made his favorite dinner, beef Wellington, which took me 6 hours because I'd never made it before. I wore the green dress he loved. Willow found me in the kitchen that afternoon. "What's all this?" she asked, eyeing the preparations with thinly veiled disgust. "It's a surprise for Alexander," I said, unable to contain my smile. "I have wonderful news to share." Her face hardened. "You're pregnant." It wasn't a question. My silence confirmed it. "How stupid are you?" She stepped closer, and I caught the scent of her expensive perfume mixing with something else. Malice. "Did you really think a baby would make him love you? Did you think it would make you belong here? I don't understand." "Of course you don't." She laughed, cold and sharp. "You're not one of us. You'll never be one of us. You're just a womb he needed to produce an heir. That's all you've ever been." I gripped the counter, her words hitting harder than any physical blow. "Alexander loves me. Alexander loves your compliance, your desperation, your pathetic gratitude for being chosen by someone like him." She examined her manicured nails. "Did he tell you about the others? The 3 before you who also thought they were special?" My heart stopped. "What others?" "The ones who got too demanding, who wanted too much. Who thought being Mrs. Hunt meant something." She smiled. "They learn differently. Just like you will." She left me standing there, surrounded by the dinner I'd prepared, the surprise I'd planned, and the sudden cold certainty that I'd made the worst mistake of my life. Alexander came home at midnight. Drunk. The Wellington was cold and congealed. "What's this pathetic display?" He stumbled past me, loosening his tie. "I made you dinner." My voice shook. "I have something to tell you." "I already know, Mother." He turned and I saw it. The emptiness Carter had warned me about. "Congratulations. I suppose you successfully trapped me." The words hit like a punch. "Trapped you, Alexander? This is our baby." "It's an anchor," he interrupted. "An obligation. Don't pretend this is some love story. We both know what this marriage really is." "What are you talking about?" He moved closer and for the first time I felt afraid. "You wanted the security, the name, the lifestyle. I needed a wife who wouldn't ask questions and a child to satisfy my parents' demands for an heir. We got what we wanted. Don't complicate it with delusions of romance." "But you said you loved me." "All those months I said what I needed to say." His breath reeked of whiskey. "You think you're the first woman desperate enough to believe it?" I slapped him. My hand connected with his face before I even realized I'd moved. The silence that followed was absolute. Then he smiled. Slow, dangerous. Nothing like the warmth I'd fallen for. "Do that again," he whispered. And you'll regret it. He left me alone with my cold dinner and my shattered world. I told myself it was the alcohol, the stress, a bad moment that didn't define us. I told myself lies because the truth was too horrible to face. The baby became my reason to stay. My little boy, I found out at the 12-week ultrasound, growing inside me while everything around me rotted. I quit my nursing clinicals. No daughter-in-law of mine works like common labor, Willow had announced at a family dinner, and Alexander had nodded in agreement. We'll discuss it later, I protested. There's nothing to discuss, he'd said, his voice pleasant, but his eyes warning me not to argue in front of his parents. I lost myself piece by piece. My phone calls with my mother grew shorter. Willow always seemed to interrupt them. My lunch dates with nursing school friends were canceled. Alexander needed me home for this dinner party or that family event. My brother Carter visited once and left furious after Anthony insulted him throughout the meal. Get out of there. Carter had pulled me aside, his detective instinct screaming. I'm serious. Whatever you think is happening, it's worse than you know. I'm pregnant. I can't just leave. Yes, you can. Mom and I will help. We'll figure it out. But I didn't listen. I was 4 months pregnant, exhausted, and still clinging to the hope that things would get better. It got worse. 5 months pregnant, I woke at 3 a.m. to Alexander's hand around my throat. Who is he? He snarled, his face inches from mine. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. His fingers dug into my windpipe. Who the fuck is he? Spittle flew from his lips. I saw you smiling at your phone. Who are you texting? He released me just enough for me to gasp. My mother. Just my mother. He grabbed my phone, scrolled through it with one hand while keeping the other on my throat. When he found nothing because there was nothing, he threw the phone against the wall. Shattered. You're lying. I'm not. Alexander, please, the baby. He looked at my belly like he'd forgotten it existed. Then slowly, deliberately, he pressed his palm against it. My son kicked in distress. Remember this, Alexander whispered. You belong to me. Every breath you take, every move you make. Mine. If I even suspect you're thinking about leaving, I'll make sure you regret it. And the baby? Well, accidents happen. He left me there, trembling and crying, my hands protectively cradling my belly. The next morning, he was gone before I woke. On my nightstand sat a new phone and a diamond bracelet with a note. Sorry about last night. Dress at work. Love you. The bracelet cost more than my mother's monthly rent. I wanted to throw it out the window. Still, I put it on because I'd learned that refusing his apologies made things worse. 6 months pregnant, Willow started the training. You'll wake at 5 a.m. every morning, she informed me over breakfast, a meal I'd prepared after she criticized everything the housekeeper made. Anthony and I expect fresh breakfast at 5:30 sharp. Eggs Benedict, fresh fruit. Coffee at exactly 175 degrees. I'm 6 months pregnant, I said quietly. The doctor said I need rest. The doctor said no such thing. She smiled like a snake. I called her. She said, light activity is fine. And this is very light, dear. Just breakfast. Surely you can manage that. I looked to Alexander for support. He was scrolling through his phone. Alexander, do his mother asks, he said without looking up. So I did. What choice did I have? My phone was monitored. My bank accounts were joint, meaning they controlled them. My car had been sold because I didn't need it anymore. I was a prisoner in a mansion, 7 months pregnant and slowly disappearing. The bruises started at 7 months. First a grab that left finger marks on my arm. You burned the toast, Alexander explained as if that justified it. Then a shove that sent me into the kitchen island, bruising my hip. You're too slow, Willow criticized, stepping over me as I struggled to stand. Then Penelope arrived for an extended visit. His sister hated me from the moment we met. But now, seeing me vulnerable and trapped, she unleashed her full cruelty. God, you're enormous, she'd say, photographing me without permission and laughing at the results. You look like a whale. She'd steal my maternity clothes and hide them, forcing me to wear things that didn't fit while the family mocked me at dinner. She talked about Alexander's ex-girlfriends constantly. Emma was so elegant and thin. Remember how thin Emma was, Alex? Alexander would smile. Very thin. And Caroline, remember Caroline's legs? Incredible legs. They do this while I served them dinner, my swollen feet aching, my son doing somersaults inside me. The final straw came at dinner, 3 weeks before the incident. I was serving the main course, roasted chicken that had taken me hours. When my hand cramped, the serving dish tilted. Gravy splashed onto Willow's silk blouse. The silence was deafening. "You clumsy bitch," Willow whispered. "I'm so sorry. It was an accident." Her hand shot out faster than I could react. She grabbed my hair and pulled, yanking my head back so hard I heard my neck crack. Accidents have consequences. Alexander stood. Finally, I thought. Finally, he'll defend me. He picked up his wine glass and poured it over my head. The cold liquid ran down my face into my eyes, soaking my dress. Anthony laughed. Penelope recorded it on her phone. Willow smiled. "Clean yourself up, Alexander," said. "You're embarrassing us." I stumbled really up the stairs to our bedroom. I locked the door and collapsed against it, sobbing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. My son kicked frantically, sensing my distress. I had to leave. Tonight. No. Before they killed me or my baby or both. I found my old phone, the broken one, and managed to turn it on. The screen was cracked, but it worked. I called Carter. "Come get me," I whispered. "Please, I need to leave now. I'm on my way. Pack a bag. I'll be there in 30 minutes. But I didn't have 30 minutes. Alexander kicked the bedroom door open. The lock splintered like it was made of paper. "Who were you calling?" His voice was eerily calm. "No one." "I wasn't." He backhanded me. I fell, my pregnant belly making me graceless and slow. My head hit the bedpost. "I have software on every phone in this house," he said conversationally, kneeling beside me. "I heard everything. Your brother's coming, is he? That should be entertaining." He grabbed my face, forcing me to look at him. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call him back and tell him it was a false alarm, that you were being emotional, hormonal, whatever excuse you want, but he's not coming here, and you're not leaving. Alexander, please. Or I'll have my father make some calls. Your brother's up for promotion, isn't he? Detective to lieutenant. Father knows the commissioner. One word. And Carter is not only not getting promoted, he's fired. Maybe even investigated for something he didn't do. We have the resources and the lawyers. You have nothing." He meant it. I saw it in his eyes. I called Carter back, repeating the script Alexander whispered in my ear. My brother's frustrated sigh broke my heart. "If you change your mind," Carter started. "She won't," Alexander said loudly enough for Carter to hear. Then he ended the call and smashed the phone under his heel. That night, he locked me in our bedroom. No food, no water, just me and my terror and my unborn son. At 2 a.m. I felt the first contraction. Too early. Too painful. I screamed for help. No one came. At 4 a.m. the contractions stopped. My baby settled. False labor, I told myself. Please God, let it be false labor. At 5 a.m. the next morning, everything changed forever. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Alexander's face, felt his hands, heard Willow's laughter echoing in the walls. At 4:47 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. Multiple people. Whispering. Then silence. I knew what was coming. I felt it in my bones, in the way my son suddenly went still inside me, as if he too understood we were in danger. At 4:59 a.m. the bedroom door opened. Alexander stood there, backlit by the hallway light. His silhouette a monster in the doorway. "Get up." My body ached everywhere. The false contractions had left me weak. My head throbbed where it had hit the bedpost. But I pulled myself upright, my hands instinctively protecting my belly. I said, "Get up." His voice cracked like a whip. I struggled to my feet. Too slow. Always too slow for them. That's when he hit me. The slap came from nowhere and everywhere at once. My head snapped to the side, and I felt something in my jaw crack. The force sent me stumbling backward, my pregnant body unable to balance. I caught myself on the bed, tasting blood, my ears ringing. But it was the words that came next that truly broke me. "Get downstairs and make breakfast for my parents and sister. Now." Through my blurred vision I saw them. Willow in the doorway, her silk robe perfect, her smile satisfied. Anthony behind her, adjusting his cufflinks as if watching his son assault his pregnant wife was just another Tuesday morning. And Penelope recording everything on her phone, her eyes gleaming with malicious delight. "You deserve it," Penelope called out, zooming in on my face. This was entertainment to her. I tried to stand. My legs shook. Blood dripped from my mouth onto my nightgown. The white one Alexander had bought me for our anniversary, now stained red. "Please," I whispered. "The baby?" "You should have thought about that before you tried to run," Willow said coldly. "You made your bed, dear. Now you'll lie in it, or rather you'll get up and cook in it." I took one step, then another. Each movement sent shock waves through my body. My son wasn't moving. Why wasn't he moving? That's when Penelope struck. She'd been waiting for it. I saw her eyes calculate the distance. Saw her shift her weight. Saw the smile spread across her face just before her designer boot. The same one she'd bragged cost $2,000, connected with my stomach. The world exploded into white-hot agony. I heard screaming. The sound tore from my throat, primal and desperate. I felt my son lurch violently inside me. Felt something tear. Felt liquid, too much liquid flood down my legs. Oops. Penelope giggled. Did I kick too hard? Another kick. This one to my ribs as I curled on the floor. I heard something crack. "This is for taking my brother away from us," she hissed, drawing her leg back again. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but feel my baby thrashing in distress. Feel my body failing him. Feel death creeping closer with every second. My phone. Where was my phone? It was on the nightstand. The new one Alexander had given me. My hand crawled across the floor. Each inch an eternity. Willow's heel stepped on my fingers. "Where do you think you're going?" But I'd reached it. My broken fingers wrapped around it, pulled it close. The screen was shattered. When had that happened? But it still worked. The emergency function. The one Alexander didn't know I'd programmed 3 months ago, during a rare moment alone. One button, red, bottom right corner. Pressed it. The phone vibrated. Message sending. Then the world went dark. I woke to screaming. Not mine. The world came back in fragments. White ceiling. Beeping machines. The smell of antiseptic. Pain everywhere but different now. Managed. Controlled. My stomach flat. No, the word came out broken. No. 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 She's awake. Someone rushed to my side. A nurse, young, her eyes full of pity. "Honey, stay calm. You're in the hospital. You're safe now." My baby. I tried to sit up. Couldn't. I was restrained. Why was I restrained? "Your son is alive." Another voice. Older. Authoritative. A doctor appeared. Her face grave. "Barely. We performed an emergency C-section. He's in the NICU. 29 weeks. Underweight. Broken ribs from trauma, but he's fighting." 29 weeks. I'd been 7 months pregnant. How long had I been unconscious? "You've been out for 6 hours, the doctor said, reading my confusion. "You nearly died. Placental abruption, internal bleeding, 3 broken ribs, fractured jaw, severe bruising." And she paused. Evidence of prolonged abuse. The machines beeped faster as panic set in. "They're here. They'll come for me. You don't understand, they'll." "No one is touching you." The voice came from the doorway, and I started crying before I even saw him. Carter. My brother looked like he'd aged 10 years in one night. His detective suit was wrinkled, his eyes red, but his face was set in stone. Behind him stood my mother, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Baby," Mom whispered, rushing to my bedside. "Oh, my baby. How?" I croaked. Carter held up his phone. "The emergency button you pressed. It didn't just send an SOS. It activated a backup recording protocol. Everything that happened this morning was recorded, audio and video, and automatically uploaded to a secure cloud server with me, as the administrator." My hand, the one that wasn't broken, flew to my mouth. I'd forgotten. 3 months ago, terrified after the first time Alexander hurt me, I'd begged Carter to help me without leaving. He'd installed a secret app on my phone, hidden within a fitness tracker, that would record and back up everything if activated. I heard everything. Carter said, his voice cracking. I heard them laughing while they... He couldn't finish. His hands were shaking. I called 911 immediately. Sent squad cars. But I also sent the recording to my captain and the district attorney. Before I even left my apartment, there were warrants being drawn up. They'll fight it, I whispered. Anthony has lawyers. Willow has connections. They'll make this disappear. Carter's smile was sharp and cold. They tried. For about 2 hours they tried. Anthony called the commissioner. Willow called the mayor. Penelope's lawyer showed up demanding all recordings be turned over. Then how? Then someone else got involved. Carter pulled out his phone and showed me a news article, just posted an hour ago. Hunt family arrested in attempted murder of pregnant daughter-in-law. Exclusive recording reveals horrific abuse. The article had a video, the footage from my phone, audio crystal clear. Everything. How is this public? I asked, shock overriding the pain. The DS office leaked it. Carter's grin grew wider. Anonymously, of course. But someone in that office, someone who's apparently tired of rich people buying their way out of justice, made sure every news outlet in the city got a copy. By 8 a.m. it was on every channel. By 9 a.m. it was trending nationally. By 10 a.m. Anthony's firm put him on leave. Willow's country club revoked her membership. And Penelope lost 300,000 Instagram followers. I couldn't process it. They're arrested? All 3 of them. Alexander too. They're currently in holding cells downtown. And here's the beautiful part. Because of the severity of the charges and the public nature of the evidence, bail was denied. Bail was denied? The doctor looked surprised. For people like the Hunts? The judge saw the video, Carter said simply. Watched the whole thing in chambers. When Penelope's lawyer argued for bail, the judge asked him, quote, "Which part of kicking a 7-month pregnant woman in the stomach do you think deserves bail? The laughing before or after?" The courtroom erupted. The lawyer walked out. They're staying in jail until trial. I should have felt relief, but I felt terror. They'll retaliate. They'll come after you after mom after. Let them try. Carter's voice turned ice cold. I'm not some helpless woman they can bully. And here's something else you should know. After that video went public, 17 other women came forward. What? Alexander's ex-girlfriends, colleagues, even a high school classmate. All with stories of abuse, coercion, and threats. Penelope's former assistants reported workplace abuse. Anthony's secretary filed a formal complaint about harassment she'd suffered for 8 years. And Willow? Carter laughed, bitter and sharp. Willow's own sister called, giving sworn testimony about decades of psychological abuse in that family. The machines around me beeped wildly. I don't understand. You opened a door, Mom said softly, gripping my hand. Those people have been monsters for years, hiding behind money and reputation. But your courage to press that button, you exposed them. Now everyone sees what they really are. A nurse rushed in, checking my vitals. She needs to stay calm. Can I see my son? I interrupted. Please, I need to see my baby. They hesitated. The doctor nodded. 5 minutes. He's fragile. They wheeled me down fluorescent hallways, each turn taking me further from the nightmare and closer to my reason for surviving. The NICU was quiet, except for the sounds of machines breathing for tiny babies, fighting for lives barely begun. And there he was. 3 pounds 4 ounces. Impossibly small, covered in tubes and wires, bruises on his tiny ribs where Penelope's kick had broken them through my body. But alive. Breathing. Fighting. I touched the incubator's glass, unable to hold him, and sobbed. For him. For us. For everything we'd survived. He's strong, the NICU nurse said gently. Stronger than babies twice his size. It's like he's determined to make it, just to spite them. A fighter like his mother. Can I name him? I asked. Before the trial, before anything else. Can I name him? Of course, Mom said. What do you want to call him? I watched my son's tiny chest rise and fall. His miniature fingers curled into fists. Phoenix, I whispered. His name is Phoenix. Because we're both going to rise from these ashes. 6 weeks later, I stood in front of the courthouse with Phoenix in my arms. He'd spent 38 days in the NICU before the doctors finally declared him healthy enough to go home. Home in this case was my mother's small apartment across town, far from the Hunt mansion, which had been seized as part of the investigation. You don't have to testify, Carter reminded me for the 100th time. The recording is evidence enough, the DA said. I'm testifying. I cut him off. Phoenix stirred against my chest, his tiny fist gripping my shirt. They tried to kill me and my son. They need to see that we survived. That they failed. The media circus outside was insane. Cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions, protesters with signs reading "Justice for Phoenix," and lock them up. The Hunt family saga had become national news. A symbol of wealth, privilege, and the abuse hidden behind perfect facades. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Every seat filled, people standing in the back. Sketch artists frantically drawing because cameras weren't allowed. And there they were. Alexander sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his perfect hair disheveled, his face gaunt. 6 weeks in jail had stripped away the polished exterior. He looked smaller, somehow broken. Next to him, Willow sat ramrod straight, refusing to look diminished despite the prison garb. Her lawyer whispered urgently in her ear, but her face remained stone. Penelope was crying. Real tears or performance? I couldn't tell anymore. Her Instagram-perfect makeup was gone, replaced with dark circles and sallow skin. Anthony sat separately. His lawyer had convinced the judge to grant him a separate trial based on some legal technicality I didn't understand, but he was there, watching from the gallery, his face unreadable. The judge entered. Honorable Margaret Torres. A 60-year-old woman with a reputation for being tough but fair. She'd seen the video. Everyone had seen the video. The question now was whether justice would prevail or money would win, as it always did. All rise, the bailiff called. The trial began. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Catherine Williams, started with the recording. In the silent courtroom, my screams echoed. The slap. The laughter. Penelope's voice. Did I kick too hard? I watched the jury. 12 faces, ranging from horror to rage to tears. An older man in the back row openly wept. Then came my testimony. I walked to the stand on trembling legs, my body still healing from everything they'd done. The prosecutor approached gently. Tell us about your marriage to Alexander Hunt. I did. All of it. The romance that was really grooming. The isolation. The control. The first time he choked me. The escalation. Willow's cruelty. Penelope's violence. Anthony's enabling silence. Objection. Alexander's lawyer shot up. This is character assassination, not evidence. Overruled, Judge Torres said coldly. The witness is providing context for the events in question. Sit down, counselor. I continued. 3 hours of testimony. The defense attorney tried to rattle me during cross-examination. Isn't it true you were depressed during your pregnancy? That you had a history of mental health issues? No, isn't it true you were clumsy? That the injuries could have been accidental? I was kicked deliberately while lying on the ground, I said steadily. My son's broken ribs matched the pattern of a boot. Your client recorded it happening and laughed. There's nothing accidental about that. The lawyer tried again. Isn't it possible you're exaggerating for sympathy? For a potential lawsuit? My baby almost died. I interrupted, my voice rising. I almost died. There is no amount of money in the world that makes that worth exaggerating. I'm here because they need to face consequences for what they did. The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge banged her gavel for order, but even she couldn't completely hide her expression of approval. Then came the surprise witness. The prosecution calls Emma Whitmore. A woman in her 30s took the stand. Elegant, composed, but with haunted eyes. I recognized Miss Whitmore. How do you know the defendant, Alexander Hunt? I was engaged to him 4 years ago. The courtroom buzzed. This wasn't in any pretrial documents. Can you describe your relationship? Emma's voice shook but held steady. It started like a fairy tale. He was charming, attentive, perfect. We got engaged after 6 months. Then I moved into the Hunt family home. And everything changed. She described the same pattern. The isolation, Willow's cruelty, Alexander's violence. The final incident where he'd pushed her down the stairs and she'd miscarried a baby she hadn't known she was carrying. Why didn't you press charges? the prosecutor asked. They paid me, Emma said bluntly. $1 million and an NDA. Anthony Hunt's lawyers told me if I went public, they'd destroy me. Ruin my career, my family's business, my reputation. They had the resources. I had medical debt from the miscarriage and a broken back. So, I took the money and stayed silent. What made you come forward now? Emma looked directly at me. I saw her story, saw what they did to her and her baby, and I realized if I stayed silent again, I'd be complicit. The money doesn't mean anything if I can't live with myself. 3 more women testified. Similar stories. A pattern of abuse spanning over a decade. Alexander's lawyer tried to discredit them, suggesting they coordinated testimony. Then the prosecutor dropped the bomb. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to introduce new evidence discovered during the investigation. She presented financial records, offshore accounts, payments to law firms with notes like Settlement W and NDA fee. Over $7 million in hush money over 15 years. The Hunt family has systematically abused, traumatized, and silenced women for over a decade, the prosecutor said. They've used their wealth not just to commit these crimes, but to bury the evidence. Until now, the defense crumbled. Alexander's lawyer tried to argue that the financial records were obtained illegally. Judge Torres shut that down. Willow's lawyer claimed his client was just supporting her son. The jury's faces said they weren't buying it. Penelope's lawyer attempted to paint her as a victim of family dysfunction. The video of her laughing while kicking me destroyed that narrative. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Each day brought new revelations. Anthony's secret second family in another state, funded by embezzled company money. Willow's history of psychological abuse toward household staff with NDAs dating back 30 years. Penelope's documented pattern of violence, including an incident where she deliberately crashed her car into an ex-boyfriend's house. The Hunt family empire was collapsing in real time. Finally, closing arguments. The defense tried. They painted Alexander as a man under stress, Willow as a traditional mother protecting her son, Penelope as young and impulsive. They argued for leniency, for understanding, for consideration of their previously unblemished reputations. The prosecution was devastating. You've seen the video, Catherine Williams said, facing the jury. You've heard it. You've heard her screams. You've seen that tiny baby fighting for his life in the NICU. The defense wants you to consider the defendants' reputations. I ask you to consider this. What kind of reputation allows someone to kick a pregnant woman in the stomach and laugh about it? She held up photos. Me in the hospital, bruised and broken. Phoenix covered in tubes. Emma Whitmore's medical records from her miscarriage. This isn't about wealth or status or traditional family values. This is about 3 people who believed they were above consequence, who believed their money and name made them untouchable, who destroyed lives without remorse because they thought no one would stop them. She paused, letting the words sink in. Today you have the power to prove them wrong. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman's hand shook as she read the verdict. In the case of the state versus Alexander Hunt, on the charge of attempted murder, we find the defendant guilty. Alexander's face drained of color. On the charge of domestic violence, guilty. On the charge of assault resulting in bodily harm, guilty. Willow remained stone-faced, but I saw her hands trembling. In the case of the state versus Willow Hunt, on the charge of conspiracy to commit assault, guilty. On the charge of aiding and abetting attempted murder, guilty. Penelope broke down sobbing. In the case of the state versus Penelope Hunt, on the charge of assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, guilty. On the charge of assault of an unborn child, guilty. The courtroom erupted. Judge Torres banged her gavel, calling for order. Then came sentencing. This happened immediately, unusual but not unprecedented in cases this clear-cut. Judge Torres's face was granite as she spoke. I have been a judge for 23 years. I have seen many disturbing things in this courtroom, but nothing has disgusted me more than watching that video and hearing the evidence in this case. She looked at Alexander. You took a woman who loved you and systematically destroyed her. You isolated her, abused her, and in the end, you nearly murdered her and your own unborn child. You are sentenced to 30 years in prison, without possibility of parole for 15 years. Alexander's lawyer objected. The judge ignored him. Willow Hunt, you enabled and encouraged your son's abuse. You treated a vulnerable pregnant woman with cruelty that defies comprehension. You are sentenced to 15 years. Willow finally cracked, her composure shattering. Penelope Hunt, you kicked a 7-month pregnant woman in the stomach hard enough to break your nephew's ribs through his mother's body. You filmed it laughing. You are sentenced to 20 years. Penelope's wails filled the courtroom. And let me be clear, Judge Torres continued, her voice rising. These sentences are not up for negotiation. They're